Welcome to Yehoshua's Gematria-Time, Daf Yomi Shiur, when, I should say. The tagline is, when in the end time, it's always a great time to learn the Daf Yomi in Gematria-Time. And today's words are Bishlama, very famous word. It means... Bishlama means it is granted according to the opinion, like it works out well according to this person's opinion. Bishlama, this person, okay? Bishlama equals 373. Okay? 373. Yeah. The words lo kasha, not a question, equals 442, and my pligi, b'mai pligi, with what are they arguing, equals 186. Mar savar equals 502. That's for side A. For side B is dekuli alma lo pligi. And some of these words we had before, but I'll just keep repeating them over, so it's like a review. And sometimes it's just a little bit more than the other ones. Like we had, like, for example, or different variations of, like, we had in a different daf we had kuli alma, or we had dik kuli alma, and then we had ad kan lo pligi. And so this one is dik kuli alma lo pligi. It's like different variations of the word. So in this daf we have it's actually on side B, so we'll leave it for side B. Okay, here we go. Yehoshua's Gematria-Time, Daf Yomi Shiur. When in the end time, it's always a great time to learn the Daf Yomi in Gematria-Time. Starting with the top of Chullin 103a, top of the page, with the words Achal Ever Min Hachai Min HaTreifa. Achal Ever Min Hachai Min HaTreifa. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayv Shtayim. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Amal Eino Chayv Achas. With regard to one who ate a limb from a living animal, that is a treifa, Rabbi Yochanan says he is liable to receive 2 sets of lashes, and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says he is liable to receive only 1 set of lashes. Bishlama, Rabbi Yochanan, there's that word we have. Bishlama means it is good according to Rabbi Yochanan. Bishlama equals 373, which I believe is the 74th prime number. 373 is the 74th prime number, and the reason why I know that is because in my 752 square project, I asked AI, what is unique about 752? And it said that it's the sum of 2 consecutive prime numbers, 373 and 379, the 74th and 75th prime number, respectively. Okay, so it's very rare, but some people start prime numbers from 1. Some people count 1 as a prime number, and I see the reasoning behind it. It has the same property as a prime number, but it doesn't have. It only has 1 divisor, and for some reason it makes it different than all the other primes. So it's not considered a prime number in the same way by most mathematicians today, and I see that. And but there's a lot of gematrias that work with when one is the first prime number. And that was put forth by Ariel Cohen Aloro in some of his work, that some of these gematrias work only when 1 is the first prime number. But anyway, let's get back to the Talmud. The Gemara comments granted according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. This works out well. Bishlama. Nicha. Nicha means it works out well. Bishlama granted according to the opinion works out well. Nicha, it's good. Because the prohibitions of eating limb from a living animal and eating flesh severed from a treifa are derived from 2 different verses. But according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, it is difficult. Why does he hold that the individual receives only 1 set of lashes? Amar Rabbi Yosef, lo kasha. There's our next word, lo kasha. Does anybody remember what the numerical value of lo kasha is? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a 4. And then a 4, and then a 2. That's it. 442. Loi kasha. It's not a question. 442. Kan bebehema achas, kan b'shtei behemois. B'shtei behemois b'chayev shtayim bebehema achas pligi. Rav Yosef said, this is not difficult. Here it is referring to one animal, but there it is referring to two animals. Rav Yosef clarifies, in a case of two animals, for example, when one ate a limb from a living animal and flesh severed from a different animal that was a treifa, everyone agrees that he is liable to receive two sets of lashes. But in a case where he ate from one animal, for example, he ate a limb severed from a live treifa animal, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish disagree. Is that our third one? Yes, it is. B'mai pligi, it has a numerical value of 186, like the word makom. B'mai pligi can remind you of the word makom. B'mai pligi, in what case do they disagree? Amar Abaye, kegon shenitrefa im yitzias rubo. Abaye said they disagree, for example, in a case where the animal became a treifa as the majority of it emerged from its mother's womb. Mar savar, there's our fourth word on the Amud. Mar savar equals 502, like the word malchuto, his kingdom. It's the same numerical value as Mar savar. Mar savar malchuto malchutchu malchut kol olamim umimshaltecha v'chol lovado baruch shem kavod malchuto leolam va'ed. Malchuto is equal to 502 and Mar savar equals 502. Bebehema b'chayal evorim amedes v'yisu treifa v'yisu revel b'hadi hadodi ka'asu. The Gemara asks, with regard to the case of one animal, in what case do they disagree? Abaye said they disagree, for example, in a case where the animal became a treifa as the majority of it emerged from its mother's womb. One sage, Rabbi Yochanan, holds that an animal, even during its life, stands to be divided into limbs, and therefore each of its limbs is considered a separate entity. And here, the prohibition of eating a treifa and the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal come into effect at the same time. Consequently, both prohibitions apply. Umar savar behemo b'chayela v'yivorim oimedes v'la asi isur ever chayin aisur treifa. And one sage, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, holds that during its life, an animal does not stand to be divided into limbs. Consequently, although the prohibition of eating a treifa comes into effect when it is born, the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal does not take effect until the limb is actually severed from the animal, and at that point, the prohibition of a limb from a living animal does not come and take effect upon the already existing prohibition of a treifa. V'i boyes ema, and if you wish, say, Dekuli alma behim b'chayel avivorim amedes. ובמס איסור איבר מיכל האיסור טרפה כמפלגי. מר סבר עשי איסור איבר חייל האיסור טרפה, ומר סבר לא יעשי איסור איבר חייל האיסור טרפה. If you wish to say instead that everyone agrees that during its life an animal does not stand to be divided into limbs, and they disagree with regard to whether the prohibition of a limb from a living animal comes and takes effect upon the already existing prohibition of a treifa. One sage, Mar Savar, is 502. Malchuto, 502. Mar Savar. One sage, Rabbi Yochanan, holds that the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal, which applies to Gentiles as well as to Jews, comes and takes effect upon the already existing prohibition of eating a treifa. One sage, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, holds that the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal does not come and take effect upon the already existing prohibition of eating a treifa. Ibait ema, if you wish, say, Dekuliyama behema b'chayel ivorim oimedes. Chigon shenitrefa le'acha mikan. Umeisir isu trefa chayel isu ever komifligi. And if you wish, say, instead, that everyone agrees that an animal, even during its life, stands to be divided into limbs, and the dispute is about a case where the animal became a treifa afterward, meaning after it was born, and they disagree with regard to whether the prohibition of a treifa cumbent takes effect upon the already existing prohibition of a limb from a living animal. Mar savar asi v'chayal, Mar savar lo asi v'chayal. One sage, Rabbi Yochanan, holds that the prohibition of eating a treifa cumbent takes effect in addition to the already existing prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal. One sage, Rabbi Shimon Lakish, holds that the prohibition of eating a treifa does not come and take effect in addition to the already existing prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal. Rava Amar Kegon Shitalash Mimeno Evar Utrefa Bo Marsor Behem V'Chayel Liborim Eno Omedes Iso Trefa Behadi Hadadi Kasu. Rava says an alternative explanation. This is referring to a case where he severed a limb from the animal and thereby render the animal a treifa. One sage, Rabbi Yochanan, holds that during its life an animal does not stand to be divided into limbs. Consequently, the prohibition of a limb for a living animal and the prohibition of a treifa come into effect at the same time. And one sage, Rabbi Shimon Lakish, holds that even during its life an animal stands to be divided into limbs, and therefore the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal takes effect when the animal is born. Consequently, the prohibition of a treifa does not come and take effect upon the already existing prohibition of a limb from a living animal. Amar B'chia Barabba, Amar Yochanan, Nochal Chelev, Bin Achai Min HaTreifa, Chayv Shtayim. Amar Lei Rabbi Ami, V'lei Mamal Shalosh. Shani Omer Shalosh. Itmar Nami, Amar Rabbi Abahu, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Achal Chelev Min Achai Min HaTreifa, Chayv Shalosh. Rabbi Chia Bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says if one ate forbidden fat from a living animal that is a treifa, he is liable to receive 2 sets of lashes. Rabbi Ami said to him, but let the master say that he is liable to 3 sets of lashes, because I say that the correct version of Rabbi Yochanan's statement is that he is liable to 3 sets of lashes times 3. Actually, 39 times 3. That's Ganze 39. That's 30 times 90 plus 27. Right? 39 times 3. So 90, 3 times 3, and then 9 times 3. So 90 plus 27. So 90 plus 30 would be 120. So 117 lashes. Ouch. According to someone's opinion here, Rabbi Yochanan's statement, because I say that the correct version, Rabbi Ami said, according to Rabbi Ami's version of Rabbi Yochanan, he gets 3 sets of lashes. And it was also stated, Rabbi Abahu says that Rabbi Yochanan says, if one ate forbidden fat from a living animal, that is treifa, he is liable to 3 sets of lashes, but my kamiflagi. With what are they arguing? The my kamiflagi, what is that again? The my kamiflagi is 186. Kigoin shenitrava imitzias ruba man diamar shalosh kasaver behema v'chaya libo ima medis isu chela v'isur evra yisur tarefa v'haria dadigatu. The Gemara asks with regard to what principle Rabbi Chia Bar Abba and Rabbi Ami disagree. They disagree in a case where the animal became a treifa, as the majority of it emerged from its mother's womb. The one who said and he is liable to 3 sets of lashes holds that even during its life an animal stands to be divided into limbs, and each of its limbs is considered a separate entity, so that the prohibition of eating forbidden fat, the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal, and the prohibition of eating a treifa come into effect at the same time. Uman diamashtayim. Uman diamashtayim. Where are we? Uman diamashtayim kosar behem v'chaya lav evorim amedes. V'isur chayel v'isur treifa ika isur ever asi chayal. And the one who said that he is liable to 2 sets of lashes holds that during its life an animal does not stand to be divided into limbs, meaning its limbs are not considered separate entities while the animal is alive. Consequently, the prohibition of eating forbidden fat and the prohibition of eating treifa animal apply, as they came into effect at the very same time when the animal was born. By contrast, the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal does not come and take effect due to the fact that the other prohibitions already apply. The bait ema the chuliama behem b'chayalav levoim medis u'meisi yisur eve b'chayal yisur b'cher yisur trefa kamev legi marsav rasichayel marsav rasichayel. And if you wish, say instead that everyone agrees that during its life an animal does not stand to be divided into limbs, and each of its limbs is not considered as a separate entity, but they disagree with regard to whether the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal comes and takes effect upon the already existing prohibition of eating fat and the already existing prohibition of eating a treifa. One sage Rabbi Yomi holds that it does come and take effect, and one sage Rabbi Abba holds that it does not come and take effect. And if you wish, say instead that everyone agrees that during its life an animal stands to be divided into limbs, and it is a case where the animal became a treifa afterward, meaning after it was born, and they disagree with regard to whether the prohibition of eating a treifa comes and takes effect upon the already existing prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal. Mar savar asi chayal midi lehavya chaylev. One sage Rabbi Yomi holds that it does come and take effect, just as is the halacha with forbidden fat, as the master said that in the verse, and the fat of the carcass and the fat of a treifa may be used for any other service, but you shall in no way eat of it. Leviticus 7:24, the Torah said, "Let the prohibition of eating a carcass come and take effect upon the prohibition of eating forbidden fat, despite the fact that the prohibition of forbidden fat came into effect first." And similarly, the word treifa teaches, "Let the prohibition of eating a treifa come and take effect upon the prohibition of eating forbidden fat." Consequently, one who eats forbidden fat from a treifa is liable to receive 2 sets of lashes. Rabbi Yomi holds that just as the prohibition of eating a treifa takes effect in addition to the prohibition of eating forbidden fat, it also takes effect in addition to the prohibition of eating a limb from a living animal. And the other sage, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, holds that it is only the prohibition of eating forbidden fat for which he is liable in addition to being liable for the prohibition of eating a treifa. The prohibition of eating a treifa takes effect in addition to the prohibition of eating forbidden fat, because with regard to the latter, there are permitted circumstances that serve as exceptions. Now we turn to 103b. Miklalo aval ever de lo hutar miklalo lo. Serve as exceptions, now we're on 103b, top, to its general prohibition, as the fat of an undomesticated animal is permitted, but with regard to a limb from a living animal, where there are no permitted circumstances to its general prohibition, the prohibition of consuming a treifa does not take effect.